So the unfortunate thing about time is that it never stops ticking. And I remember when I was a teenager, all the new music coming out, all the new movies coming out, all the new games coming out were generally way more enjoyable to me then than the new stuff coming out is to me now. And it got me wondering, it got me thinking about this question for the past few years. Are things getting worse or am I getting older? And this question haunted me until around the time I played Dark Souls. And when I played Dark Souls and found that I found this experience highly enjoyable, I'm like, no, things are just generally getting worse. The games coming out are worse. The music coming out is worse. They're not as they used to be. And I figured that out because I did find some new things, some diamonds in the rough, some needles in the haystack that were actually pretty good. And so in comes Elden Ring in 2022. I am so excited for Elden Ring. I am a Dark Souls fan. I love Dark Souls. And Elden Ring is supposed to be everything Dark Souls was and more. It's supposed to be Dark Souls with better graphics, with more sophisticated combat, with a bigger world, with more bosses, with more weapon choices. And so I was ecstatic for Elden Ring. And of course, I buy Elden Ring on day one. And I play Elden Ring. And while I did find that Elden Ring was a rather enjoyable experience, there was something just a little bit off about it. Something just wasn't exactly the same as Dark Souls. And I couldn't really pinpoint what it was. And so what I do, of course, is I reach out to the experts. I have a conversation with Kevin Jordan, who is one of the original game designers on original vanilla World of Warcraft. And I talk to him and I kind of tell him, hey, so, I like Dark Souls and I like Elden Ring, but something about Elden Ring just doesn't feel the same and I can't really pinpoint what it is. And to my amusement, Kevin Jordan says, well, I think that Dark Souls is a better designed game than Elden Ring. And this kind of caught my attention. I'm like, why would you say that? How could that be the case? And what Kevin says is, well, think about it. When you're going through Dark Souls, there could be a surprise at any corner. You're always anticipating what's right around the corner. You're always on guard. You're always alert because there could be a monster that can surprise you and shock you, or there could be some loot, or there could be anything that surprises you, and you have to deal with it right there and then. And I said, well, how is that any different than Elden Ring? And Kevin says, well, in Elden Ring, all you need to do to escape any situation is get on your mount and ride away. And so, whereas the world is more vast, and you do get a sense of awe from the exploration of a vast world, and that this is a huge appeal of Elden Ring, you're not really standing there with your ass clenched, kind of, slogging through and working your way through the quicksand. You're zooming through an open map, and even if a monster does surprise you or pops out of nowhere, you can just run right past it and outrun it. You can't do that in Dark Souls. And so you were more on your feet in Dark Souls. And the way that Dark Souls handled exploration was a bit more involved. And what Kevin called this was riding flat. He said riding flat is you're just riding from point A to point B, and there's a nice visual spectacle, but there's not really much more. And I was still kind of confused about this. I said, well, hold on, wait a minute. If that's the case, then how could I have enjoyed World of Warcraft so much when I was younger, when I was a teenager, when I was a kid? Because in much of the same way, you really are just kind of walking from point A to point B. You might be doing some quests and stuff along the way, but there is quite a bit of walking. And Kevin says, well, the reason why you kind of felt this way with classic World of Warcraft is because we designed classic World of Warcraft to have a lot of social surprises. So you're running around, you're meeting new people, maybe you have a positive experience, maybe you have a negative experience, and you never really know what you're going to find. And that kind of helped keep a lot of things fresh and a lot of things exciting. You're really not just walking from point A to point B, you're walking from point A to point B, and there are some social experiences to be had along the way. In comes Starfield, right? Starfield is a Bethesda game. And what is the most notorious Bethesda game? It's Skyrim. And something that's interesting about the way that people play Skyrim is you could find yourself in a situation where you have a goal in mind. You want to get somewhere, you want to do something, you have some quest. And so you walk over to that area. And on your way there might be an NPC that catches your attention. There might be a cave that catches your attention. There are things along the way that make it so that you can get halfway from point A to point B in Skyrim and halfway through forget that you were even going to point B because you got so involved with the world. There was things in the open world that made it feel alive and interesting. And it wasn't, just this linear path from one point to another. Something similar can be said about The Witcher 3. If you're someone who really enjoys a lot of storytelling, even though Witcher 3 has a lot of riding flat, as Kevin calls it, there is also a lot of things that could surprise you along the way in terms of the dialogue, and an NPC might stop you and ask you for something. And it's these little surprises, it's these little nuances of discovery that keep things feeling alive. And I feel like out of Starfield, a lot of people expected Skyrim in space. But the difference between Skyrim and Starfield is in Starfield, there is one, procedural generation, so things aren't handcrafted for you to explore. And two, you find planets that are completely empty with just a few points of interest on each planet. And so you're not getting the sort of ass-clenching experience that you're getting from exploring in Dark Souls. You're not getting the social experience from something like old school World of Warcraft. You're not getting the story experience like you might get from something like Witcher 3 or Final Fantasy 14. And you're not getting the sort of exploration and discovery you'd get from the caves and from the NPCs and from events that happen in Skyrim. It's literally just walking from point A to point B in a vast open landscape. And a lot of people have described this experience in Starfield, where they find the top of a mountain and they're ready to scale it and they're excited. What's up on the mountain? What's up there? What could it possibly be? And then you get up on the mountain, empty, nothing. And you look around you, wasteland. And what seems to be happening is a lot of these developers continuously focus on spectacle, on making things look a certain way, on things being pretty. Because in truth, open world games in the past decade have very frequently been critically acclaimed. You've got The Witcher 3, you've got Zelda Breath of the Wild, you got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you got Red Dead Redemption 2. Open worlds are hot. They're cool. They're in. They're hip. Right? And so they do really give you this sense of vastness, but they cannot carry a game on their own. There needs to be something else that really enhances that feel of discovery. Kevin kind of used the example of an open ocean. He said it's very hard to design an open ocean in games because while an ocean is vast and it's, huge, there's not really much to see besides just blue, 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 and more blue. So to design an ocean, takes a lot of effort and it's very difficult to do. What empty planets on Starfield aren't that different. They aren't that different. And so for that reason, Starfield really is a letdown compared to something like Skyrim was back for its day. So then that begs the question, why, besides in the United States, did IGN and a lot of other game journos rank Skyrim, Starfield so highly? And that's a story for my next video, probably. And if you like this video, do all the YouTube stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.